Welcome back on the AM show. Hopefully you enjoyed that engagement in sports. But time now for me to give you my blunt thoughts for the morning. I've titled it, Leading Amiss. Akufo Addo's mess and the price we are paying for it. Bad leaders, terrible leaders, clueless leaders. There are some everywhere on God's earth. There are a few places, though, which have an unfair share of piss-poor leaders. Leaders who, instead of making the lot of their people better, actually end up exacerbating matters even further. The study of politics will reveal to you how political parties contest for power so they can implement their policies, which are supposed to ultimately benefit the masses. When you look around, though, in our part of the world, it is clear the real beneficiaries of political leadership tend to be the political leaders themselves and their affiliates or cronies. If I were to ask you, watching me this morning, bluntly, by just how much do you think your life, your personal economy, your human development, and your fortunes generally have improved over these last few years, what would your response be? I would love to know. Most of you, or your largely predictable answers to my question, explain why I feel leadership, or more aptly, the misleadership that is often dealt us in our part of the world, is simply not cutting it. Bad leadership is not always starkly autocratic or dictatorial. In fact, sometimes it comes to us dressed in the con clothes of democracy and human rights and the rule of law and all of that. Let us consider, though, some back-to-the-bone characters from the past and how, though they were not democratic, their actions could reflect some of what we are witnessing. Let's go far back in time and picture Attila the Hun. Attila, aka Scourge of God, was an uneducated barbarian born in the 5th century. After his uncle's death, Attila and his brother Bleda took control of the Hunnic Empire and signed a peace truce with the Eastern Roman Empire. Just a few years later, Attila led a series of vigorous attacks on the Romans by breaching the peace agreement and demanded gold and gems to stop the fight. The lust for power blinded him so much that he killed his brother Bleda to rule the empire alone. During his callous rule extending from 434 to 453 AD, Attila used to say, note, "There, where I have passed, the grass will never grow again." Attila died of severe nose bleeding in 453 AD when he celebrated his second marriage feast. Nobody knows about his burial site as his servants got killed after his death. Even in death, this dude was still killing people. How about a more recent example now? Let's do Pol Pot, shall we? Ever heard of him? Pol Pot was the chief of the Cambodian revolutionary group who planned the Cambodian genocide. He is cast as a demon in Cambodian mythology as he tries to annihilate the Cambodian civilization to set up a new regime. During his reign as a prime minister from 1976 to 1979, it was always, "Pol Pot killed my husband," or "Pol Pot destroyed the temple." His policies killed almost 2 million people, wiping out 25% of his population. His atrocity was not satisfied just by killing innocent people, as he ordered babies to be torn limb by limb. Now, you may be asking, why do I point to the president's mess as I speak of all of this? Well, with an executive as powerful as ours, and with all the ignored calls by Mr. President on myriad topical issues with the consequences we are facing, whom else would you rather blame? If credit is due, we would give it to him. In like manner, should there be blame, we ought to hand it to him. Simple. I shudder to say this, but in our misleadership, I figure we have seen at our national level such crooked, twisted, deceitful misleadership like never before witnessed in the Fourth Republic. We are seeing today the Bernie Madoffs and the Charles Ponzis, after whom we get the term Ponzi scheme, doing their worst as they claim to run our country. Look at our economy. It's in a shambles. How did we get here? We all know how. But why are we not even considering the real remedial measures toward not just mediocre short-term relief, but well thought through lasting sustenance? We have at post crooked financial gurus using brain work not to work for the ordinary Ghanaian, but instead to rip him off. Look at us. Look at this domestic debt exchange and how it's biting us hard. We recently shared with you the story of Dr. Yao Pebi, who, while speaking on Joy FM Super Morning Show, said he had encouraged many health practitioners in the country to cultivate the culture of investment and thus is pained by the turn of events. While reminiscing on the sacrifices he and his colleagues had to make to gain the principle to buy bonds, Dr. Perby could not help but shed tears. He had encouraged colleague doctors to save. In his own words, we sacrificed student loans and some entertainment among others. And now those who were just blowing their money are laughing at us. They'll be saying, you should have chopped the money, he said. Why did we have to come to this? Why? Because of the recklessness and greed of a few. That's why. Come with me. When you look at our slides for today, starting from the calls to downsize government, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council has been urging government to cut down on expenditure by reducing the size of government, implement policies that promote the good of the citizenry rather than merely for the political party or the government, and review its major flagship programs. You look at some of our budgetary allocations, even the positives. You look at the 2022 budget allocation for free SHS, 2.3 billion. It shot up to 2.96 billion. 660 million increased. Planting for Food and Jobs, 630 million in 2022, 700 million in 2023. That's a 70 million Ghana cedi increment. 1D1F, 260 million last year. In this year, 350 million. That's a 90 million Ghana cedi increment. My question, even with these increments, how much have we seen and how much can we expect to see? In terms of the calls to downsize government, it's not the first. The Catholic Bishops' Conference has said it. Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana, they pointed to that. The Center for Democratic Development has pointed to that. Occupy Ghana, among a host of other institutions and groups, have asked for same. But even if we don't think that we can do what other countries in the West are doing, how about neighboring African countries? Let's go to Malawi. The president, Lazarus Chakwera, has reduced the cabinet size from 31 ministers to 25 ministers, making it one of the smallest in Africa. And it's not just cabinet. By and large, they have one of the smallest groups in terms of ministerial appointments across the continent. When you come to our country, Article 76 of the 1992 Constitution mandates, a lot of you don't know, mandates the president to appoint a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 19 cabinet ministers. Currently, Ghana has 28 cabinet ministers. That's in excess by 9. And mind you, when you look at Malawi, it's not that they are so small. Their population is around 19.89 million. So you can round it off to 20 million. The total number of ministers currently, including the regional ones, is 86. Now, if you look at their allocations to the 28 ministries, cabinet ministries, it sums up to 72.8 billion. If these ministries were 19, according to the initial list provided in 2017, this is how much we would be saving. It would come to 66.9 billion, and that would be our savings. 5.81 billion. Do you know what this can do in Ghana? Roads, other infrastructure, hospitals, schools under trees, schools without desks. To wrap, according to the Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Dr. John Kwache, the Bank of Ghana unlawfully printed 40 billion Ghana cedis, the equivalent of 3.3 billion. How much are we going to the IMF for again? For government, and received a paper in return. We have seen some response from the Bank of Ghana. Government plans to convert the loans into bonds to make it liable to restructuring. When you look at all these dynamics, fellow Ghanaians, and you contemplate where we are, you see that mismanagement, the recklessness I speak of, has led us here. It's high time we stood up and did something about that. Because if the ship capsizes, we will go down with it. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I say all these because I am extremely passionate about Ghana, and like I always say, what her future, intricately tied to ours, holds. These are my blunt thoughts for you, served raw, hot, unedited, and undiluted. As always, we pray that God will richly bless our motherland and make her great and strong.